Hello, this is Chris Thomas King, and you're watching the Break It Down show.
Yeah,
Happy
man, we're
New
doing it. I love it.
Yeah.
This is great. It's one of my favorite things is when I get a chance to chat with you because I love music and you're such a well of musical knowledge. I mean, beyond your own personal capability as a bluesman, just you know so much, and you always bring such interesting perspective to the conversation. And I want to get into that, but first off, let's introduce your new album, Big Gray Sky. What got you back into the studio? I know you had some 2020 COVID type music that you put out, but what got you into this particular project itself?
Um, this album, Big Gray Sky, it was a long time coming, but it was a long time coming because some of these songs have been in my, I recorded or made demos of, and just for one reason or another didn't release it. And some of them are fresh, recordings, but it's something that I wanted to get back to playing the electric guitar, not get back to playing it, but get back to expressing that part of my talent. Because sometimes people, tend to think of me as the acoustic guitar player from Old Brother Where Art Thou, which is fine. But I started out, rocking the blues, with dreadlocks and screaming Marshall amplifiers. So I wanted to get back to a little bit of the blues guitar hero, and that's what this album kind of represents.
Yeah, I was gonna when I listened to it, it felt very. I would say, and this is just Pete talking. It felt very traditional. Like I'm like, oh, okay. Chris has gone kind of roots in terms of how I think of the blues and what you're doing. But you're the one who expresses the blues way better than I do. So how do you characterize? Is this like a return home, or how do you characterize it?
No, Pete, I think you got the right impression. It is in the quote unquote 12 bar tradition, you know, of the way people generally stylize the music. And of course, I'm a guy who have taken and explored the boundaries and the frontier of the music, stretching it and things like that. But it's nice sometimes to get back to the roots, just get back to the foundation. Not so much. It's good sometimes as an artist to do that, but I think it's good to kind of reground my audience. People that have followed me, I'm get sometimes you gather new fans, and so they haven't really heard me play. They don't know I grew up playing the blues, on my dad's juke joint. They might not know my whole story, all the blues musicians I played with and things over the years, and you know, and sometimes you have to remind people that this is a part of who I am, and this is really the foundation.
Yeah. Yeah, blues is one of these categories, especially as like you have someone like Taylor Swift who's just gone straight to Mars. Like forget the moon. Like she has just gone crazy. And everybody else kind of looks around. It's like, hey, we all have been here for a long time. This is not a knock on Taylor Swift. She's amazing, but all the rest of the genres are kind of like, hey, we all out here working, putting out songs. You put out some amazing music the last 5 years. Some of these songs you put out on the internet, during the like on YouTube, are just incredible. But it is hard to gather an audience. It's hard to even exist when someone takes up a billion people and just woof, and just like lights the house on fire. It's so how does like when you look at the industry and where blues sits, how
So
do
we're,
you
we're
how do you describe the industry?
so we're talking big picture now about the
Yeah,
music.
big picture. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, well, big picture. You know, the big picture. We'll just talk about the music industry, period, and then I'll let talk about that sphere, that part of the business that is called the blues. But
Right.
the music industry as a whole, like you asking me right before we went on, is the album available? Where can people buy the album, Big Gray Sky? And I didn't. This is the first album I've released where, well, it's not the first, I don't think, but it's one of the few albums that I've released that doesn't have a physical component to it. So there is
Right.
no physical CD. We didn't do CDs this time, and we didn't do a physical album. And it's kind of strange to release an album and you just kind of upload it to your distributor. My distributor, by the way, is out of Brooklyn. I've been with them for about 15 years. and I have my own record label called 21st Century Blues Records. So 21st Century Blues Records is distributed by Virtual Label, is the distribution company out of Brooklyn, New York. And when I finish my projects and load it up to send it up to them, they get it out to Amazon, to you know iTunes, Spotify, all these different services that. So music is, you never see it or touch it. It's just out there, and that has killed the music industry as we knew it. I mean, the record business, used to call it the record business, but it's not a record business anymore.
No.
So
Yeah.
and a lot of people who, the musicians, the songwriters, the producers, everybody in that assembly line of creating, commercial records, most people have had to find new work. It really is a different business. It's a long way from when the music business was at a peak, when Old Brother Warthar was released in 2000 and sold millions and millions of copies, where in order to hear it, you had to go to Borders Record Shop or go someplace and hear it on a listening post or something. And that's how you get a preview of the album. And if you wanted to buy it, well, of course, CDs back then cost about $18 roughly. Yeah. So we're just in a whole new world. So if anybody want to buy this record, they can go to iTunes and buy the digital download. But there's no physical copy, but it's available on all the services. But now, as far as the blues business go, the blues has never been a real commercial genre of music. And that's because it existed before there was a record business. The music started in New Orleans in the late 1800s, and there was no record business. So it predated the record business. And I was always a little frustrated being based in Louisiana. I've lived other places, but being based in Louisiana, where Louisiana didn't have like a music row like in Nashville, or real, publishing houses and record companies. And it was more like a live music place. And that's kind of what we're left with now. So in a way, now that the big publishing deals and big signing to some big multi, $1 million record deal, all those things are kind of passe now. And we're in this world now where you have to wear 15 different hats. The more hats that you wear, this doing what you do, that you have to be the producer, you're the camera guy, the light guy, the audio man, and you're the whole production team all in one. And that's kind of where we are now with music. So it's not so my opinion is that I think the days of making the huge rock star was an aberration. If you think of music art, most artists are not going to be Elton John. They're not going to be some Taylor Swift. So music has never existed in that type of place. I think it was an aberration, and a nice aberration if you could get it. But I don't think it'll ever come back to where, at least not in anytime soon, where one artist can galvanize a whole and capture the imagination of a nation like in real time, because everybody is in their little silos, listening to music and have their own personal playlist. And one last thing I'll add, just using Taylor Swift as an example, she didn't just start her career yesterday. No, she's young, but she's been out here a long time. And she was around when physical records, she built her first thing out of Nashville. And so she came out of like the real record industry, that was what was left of it. Yeah. But artists that are just starting today, man, good luck with that.
Whew. Yeah. I mean, there is a lot you just said. One of the jobs you didn't talk about that I know I have to do is I'm also the bus driver. Like if I want to, like if I said, hey, Chris, I'm going to drive through Texas and I'll drive an extra 10 hours. I'm already out here and I'm going to come see you and do the show, face to face. I'm the guy that does the travel booking and books the hotels. It's like, but if you want to stand out, like you got to show out, you got to go and you got to do it. And You know, if I want to make money and I want to separate myself from my peers, I got to get out of this little box that we're forced to perform in, because that's the only way to really do it. I got to encounter people in real time. We were like, wait, what do you mean you get in your truck and you drive to people, you know? But my budget can only support so much of that too. So all of these things kind of limit what we're allowed to do. It's great that we can do this and have this conversation, but you know, and I'll talk in the clear about this. Like, I am trying to figure out a way to make it make sense to get you out of your hometown and out to my hometown here in California, and line up 2 or 3 gigs to make it make sense to, you know, like, show people what you do live, and then put some money in your pocket. And then I don't even care if I make money. I just want to produce these things to create the real life experience to do that. And even that it's just hard to do these things, because this industry is very hard to tame, to get it to put a crowd big enough together to be able to, it's just really, really, really tough to make it make sense because of the way it works. I want to say one more thing too, and then I'll shut up about all this stuff. But recently watched the Tower. I used to work at Tower Records back when I was a kid,
Oh,
and
nice.
I watched the documentary about it. You know, and there was a tower right across from Capitol Records, and Elton John would come down before they opened. He had special access, and he'd buy multiple copies of the same record for each of his houses, and he spent a lot of money there. You know, but the tastemakers, the Capitol Records folks are over there all the time. You know, David Geffen's over there, Iovine's over there. All these guys who are making decisions and breaking things and acts, and all these people are there at the heart of it. You know, they're making it, they're playing it, they're selling it, all within a mile. You know, and that is all different now. You're right; it is a totally different world. And so when anybody wants to, not down there is the link. You can buy it on Amazon. You can get it on iTunes. But this is how you support acts. Like, they actually go out and make this music. So it's interesting when we think that, you know, yes, there's a vinyl resurgence, but it's really just a fringe market. How does, I don't know, what do you like? I know when we talked the last time face to face, was you were like, man, I just want to get past this pandemic so I can go out and play. I just want to play live.
Yeah, well, speaking of playing live, I haven't been out touring since the pandemic. You know, I've done. I was in Vegas a couple of months ago for a very special show where they brought me out, and we did like a concert presentation of my book. You know, the blues,
Yeah.
um, and um, and that was a lot of fun. But basically, the musicians that I spent about a decade on the road with, Jeff Mills, drummer, he's based in Atlanta, Danny Infante, bassist, who's based in Mississippi. We after everything shut down for a couple of years, we kind of shut down too, and then I got into a mode where I as a new author now, you know, sometimes being on the road and in hotels and airplanes and things like that, I've spent a whole lifetime on the road, you know,
Mhm.
and gigging. So I kind of, it was a nice, the pandemic was unfortunate, but it was a nice way for someone like myself to kind of stay at home for a little bit and kind of refresh my batteries or whatever,
Yeah.
and do and get some things done that you just can't do when you're constantly on the move. So if it wasn't for slowing down from touring, I wouldn't have been able to write the book. And I'm starting to work on a follow-up book, you know, to the previous one. And another good thing about having some downtime is that I'm recording more. So I have a new album I'm working on as we speak. I'm in the demo stage of it. And you talk about tradition, this goes all the way back to the, you know, the early classic blues stuff, pre-Mississippi, you know, Delta, you know, where I'm doing some Lonnie Johnson,
Yeah.
and some things that came out of the early New Orleans blues, is what I'm capturing on this new record, and that'll hopefully come out sometime in the spring. And then my other project is almost all pretty much finished. I already finished what you call my cutting edge album, or the album that, you know, blows the doors off of the boundaries of the blues, you know. But, you know, Pete, you know, if I released all of that on one album, I could do that, you know, a 40 song, a 50 song album. But then, you know, people wouldn't know what to do with it. They haven't known what to do with my music all these years, because
Yeah.
it's hard to fit it all into one thing. So I try to space it out. I could just put out the next album and have the traditional stuff right next to some hip hop blues and some cutting edge things. But then people minds they seem to not be able to handle that so well. So I try to
Yeah.
pace it a little bit, and give people like an appetizer and the main course, and then come in with a little dessert or something.
Yeah. Boy, I can appreciate that. And you've taught me a lot about this. So I can yeah, let's back up a little bit, I don't know, 5 or 6 episodes
But
of us
before
talking about this. Yeah.
before we go further, let me just say that starting here in 2024, I am planning to put a new band together, and hit the highway pretty hard. It's time for me to do that. So I will be getting out there, and actually, I don't have at the moment. I'm in between booking agents, so there's some business to be done to get the whole circus back on the road. You know what I mean? So
Yeah. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
got
Yeah.
to connect with the right booking agent. You know, get a plan together, and then come out with a new band, new show, new songs, and I'm looking forward to getting that going.
The yeah, we talked, I don't know, a while back, and you were pretty mad at the Grammy folks, because they weren't considering you eligible for the blues category. Are you even going to bother? I mean, this is perfect for them, right on the target. And I don't want to look. I don't want to get you riled up about this. If you don't want to talk about this, we can skip it. But yeah, because look, you're my friend, and I don't want to like get you pissed off or that kind of thing. But do you? Will you submit this to the Grammy folks, or are you just sort of done with that part of your career now?
That's a really good question. I can't. I don't know. Normally, for the last few years, I don't submit my music to the Grammys, and I used to be on the. I was there. I was one of the people in the Grammy room, with everybody making decisions and what goes in what category. So, you know,
Yeah,
when I wrote that letter taking down the Grammys, which you're referring to a couple of years ago, because they removed me from the blues categories, like,
yeah,
but they also gave the Rolling Stones the blues Grammy of the year, like, but I didn't qualify, and so I had to call them out on that. And sometimes I find myself having to say things, or because nobody else seems to want to say anything, you
yeah,
know. And I don't know if that hurts my career, I don't know if it helps it, but I'm not trying to stir up controversy or anything. But it's like, is somebody going to say something? You see something happening, and it's like, is nobody? Is this okay with everybody?
right,
And evidently, too often that's the case.
yeah.
But
Well, and that's your
they,
job
but
as the
they,
artist, right?
yeah, but well, it should it. That's a longer conversation
Okay.
when it comes to Black blues artists. You know what I mean? So
Yeah,
that's a deeper
yeah,
conversation. There are institutions that'll uphold Eric Clapton, the Rolling Stones, and all this kind of stuff here. But there aren't a lot of institutions or voices or people out there, advocating for um, Black blues musicians, or trying to keep the culture going in an authentic way. You
yeah,
might say, well,
yeah,
there's a lot of blues societies and organizations and this and that. But my book exposed the fact that a lot of that is not, it's not based on accurate information, and that's a longer conversation. But I would just say that that's how I end up being an author, is that the blues didn't even have an authentic history. And I'm looking around, is anybody going to do something about it? Anybody going to say anything? And so then I have to come out and step out and try to fill that void of blues intellectualism, which usually the blues musician is trying to downplay, you know, uh, try to play, dumb down or play down to the audience, so to speak. But behind the scenes, when we're backstage and we're hanging out and stuff, everybody has strong opinions and they have a lot of information and things to say, but they won't say it to a guitar magazine or say it in public. But
yeah.
but if there was more people out there advocating, or more blues intellectuals and more people to write those kind of essays and argue for us, then I could just play the guitar. you know, I could just sit back and play the guitar, man, all day. That'd be great. But
Yeah.
speaking of all the hats we have to wear, I had to put on the hat of being an author, because I mean, how many times can you just say, yeah, here's Chris Thomas King, the guy who sold his soul to the devil at the crossroads. I mean, that's, come on.
Yeah. Yeah.
But the,
Yeah.
but the
Well,
Grammys have since they got rid of those categories. That they've done a little bit better. The brouhaha I created, it did do some reshuffling, and so things have gotten a little better. And yes, I may decide to start submitting on my music for Grammy consideration in the future. And I do have Grammy awards. I have country music awards and things, but I don't have any blues Grammy awards. I've never.
isn't that crazy?
Yeah, I have album of the year, country, pop things, but I've never really been recognized as a blues musician by any of the institutions that really supposed to be the institutions of blues. They just have never. I don't even think they see me as a blues artist. I don't know if they still see me as that or not. But I've never gotten the recognition from that community.
Yeah.
Even though that's my life's work, but I'm an outsider.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that must mean you're a good artist, right? If you're pissing off the establishment, and if you make music that they don't get, and you definitely have the blues cred, you must be doing something right. Let's get back to the album. So it's called, just for everybody watching, it's called Big Gray Sky, and I'm going to put the link up here. And I really want folks to just buy it. Go to Amazon, put this link in, or wherever you buy things, it's on digital, and just buy it. It's called Big Gray Sky. And I'm telling you right now, I've listened to the whole thing several times. It's great. If you like the just straight up and down blues, it's great. I like, let's see, what songs do I like? I like One More Scotch is great. Big Gray Sky, the title track is great. There's all kinds of, I Got a Woman is great. But the whole thing is great. It's 10 tracks long. It's solid all the way up and down. Which is the song that you wrote the longest ago? You said some of these songs were, kind of in the queue for a while. Which ones goes back the furthest?
Choking Kind, I believe, is one that I recorded. Actually, I began recording it probably around 2007 or something.
Mm-hmm.
And
oh, wow. So way back.
Yeah, that far, yeah. So I recorded that around 2007, and then I didn't like it, and what I didn't like about it was my version of it. I got mixed up with the technology. I wanted to record at the highest sample rates, and I was recording at 96K, and so I was doing a whole session at 96K, and so you're bringing the audio in with these huge large files, but then when it came down to mix the album, or not the album, when it came down to mix that song and some others, the technology couldn't handle 96K recording sessions, even though people was advertising that it could. And so I could never really get it to sound proper. And I was still kind of hybrid, between recording on using vintage recording gear, analog recording gear, and kind of mixing that in with digital. And I've kind of always been the blues guy that have always been on the cutting edge of technology and stuff. And so I was comfortable with that. But somehow that period of recording frustrated me, because it just I couldn't make a finished picture of what I thought it should be. And I put it on the side and moved on and did other albums, did other things. And in putting this album together, now Big Gray Sky, the title cut, that's brand new writing and recording that was done, for this particular album. Technology has caught up now. I hardly, once I
Yeah.
record my music now, I hardly go out of the box or out of the computer and deal with hardware. Even though I got like, you know, $20,000 preamps and things like that that I could pass it through to give it a sound that I'm aesthetic that I'm looking for. It's not worth it to go come out of the computer, go back into the analog world, and come back in just to add some coloration or something. And these plugins now can handle stuff. I mean, things have gotten really, really, really advanced of what you can do in just in a simple laptop.
Yeah.
So another, and then two songs that I've been doing on the road a lot uh, for some years is a song called Home, which is a cover tune, and I Got a Woman, the Ray Charles tune. And so on those two songs, my touring band was with me, Danny Infante on bass on those songs, and maybe I replayed the bass on Home. I'm not sure. And then on drums is Jeff Mills, and they toured with me for years. So we went right in the studio and cut and did a session, and those two songs were in there. And then the other tunes, like One More Scotch, is really new. And then Get Behind Me and Like a Cowboy Rambling. Those two tracks I cut. I cut them for my last album, but didn't really have an outlet. You know, they didn't seem to fit. And then my wife said she didn't like those tunes. And when she says something, it you know, I have to kind of like take a little step back. But sometimes she don't like songs sometimes for the, you know, she might think the songs, what's that woman that wrote that song? You probably think this song is about you. You know?
Carly Simon?
Yeah, but the song is not about necessarily about her. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So her reason for not liking the song might be totally different from anything having to do with
that.
With the melody or whatever.
Yeah.
But anyway, so that's kind of like so this album, it's a new album, but like I said, at least 3 or 4 of the songs have been in the works for a while, and like the Ray Charles tune, which I did the movie Ray, and I always wanted to, and I did some recordings with Ray Charles that that his management didn't want released. So I've always kind of wanted to recover some of his music, but then I had kind of like a little funky feeling how his managers, you know, dealt with me doing the making of the movie and stuff.
Yeah.
But I Got a Woman, it's pretty much a live recording. And then the other thing with the band in the studio, that is, we all said, you know, roll the tape, you know, 1, 2, 3, and hit it, and what you hear is pretty much the live, real live feel, which is kind of rare. Now everything else, almost I'd say about 95% of the bass, the keyboards, the strings, the lap steel guitar, anything, background vocals, everything you're hearing, I'm performing all those instruments. And then I did the engineering, except for about 2 songs. I did all the engineering, and then I mastered it in my studio. Usually I would send that off to like Bunny Grunman, or mastering in LA, or send it off to Sterling Sound in New York, which is very expensive.
Yeah.
But again, if you're not making music for vinyl, if you're not making
the hat on your head,
yeah, then you don't have to. These mastering houses and stuff, it's just one format. You know, you just put it out as a digital recording, and that's it. You don't have to do a mix for the radio, and a mix for the nightclub, and a mix for this, and you know, you don't have to master it for all those different formats. And so straight from my studio, uploaded to my distributor, and out to the world. And that's kind of how it's done today.
How does your music evolve? I mean, the song from 2007, technology aside, I know that's a big thing, but your own personal art, how did it change from, because look, 15 years ago, it's more than 15 years, it's almost 20 years ago, really. You're a different dude than you were back then. How did that change?
I'm sorry.
Like just
Could
your
you,
art, like how you approach the songwriting process. How do you approach like how you play?
you
You
talking
know,
about
like
my method?
yeah, and your
My
emotions
method.
and the just because you're a completely different person physically. Every single cell in your body is different. Your bones are different. I mean, everything about you. Your kids are older. You have kids. You don't have. It's like all these things are different, right? Your soul is aged. All that stuff is different. So how are you different when you're playing Big Gray Sky versus the choking kind?
Well, let me. I won't answer that philosophically as much as I would like. That gives me an opportunity to tell you about my method, which I'm
Okay.
very excited about. I am
Okay. Good.
very excited, Pete, because I think that this year I'm going to be more productive than I've been in a very long time, and I'll tell you why. And we've been talking a little bit about technology. Now, I'm very excited about this because I'm doing it. Like I said, I'm doing an album right now which is kind of the soundtrack to my book, which is the origins of the blues, which is like the classic early,
Yeah.
most earliest recordings. I'm re-recording these things that were done about 100 years ago, and I'm enjoying the process. Now, this is how I've come to do things.
Mm.
When technology say that it can do everything, it can't do everything. But what you buy some product and you say, well, it can do this and do that, and you think you got an all-in-one whatever, and they always try to sell you an all-in-one kind of situation. But you got to find out what it can do and can't do, and then use it for what it can do, because everything. So I have about 4 stages. I decided not to go straight to my computer when I have a music idea, because then I get bogged down with trying to get the sound right. I got to have an internet connection. I got to have,
Yeah.
the software. I need my computer on. Everything got to be upgraded to the latest,
Yeah.
whatever. And
Yeah.
and then by the time you do all of that, you lose the idea and the inspiration.
Yeah.
So what I do is I use my iPhone. I just hit record on my iPhone when I have an idea, or when I have a lyrical idea or a melody, or I'm playing my guitar and I hear something interesting. I go
Mhm.
straight to my phone and record it. And I just turn on my phone. It's always with me. And so it's just like a notation thing. I just put the idea down there and it'll stay there. And then I try to stay away from the computer as I'm arranging a song. When I'm actually arranging it, I'm playing all the instruments. I'm playing the organ, the piano, the Wurlitzer. I'm playing the Fender Rhodes. I'm playing the guitars, the acoustic. I'm doing all of that, and
Yeah.
uh, and so I have to learn the song on each instrument and see if it's gonna work together. So I arrange it with no computers, just old-fashioned pencil and paper. Write down the chord changes, learn the tune, get comfortable with it. Then I move to like my drum machine, and on my drum machine, I let's see, I probably could show it to you. I don't know I can't see myself, so I don't know if you can see.
Yeah.
Can
I
you see
can
this?
I can see good enough. Yeah.
Can you see this thing?
I can see it. Yeah. It's fine. Yeah.
So I go straight to this drum machine and record like that's why I make the demo, and and I do it there because I'm not using the computers and all of that and hooking up
Right.
wires and all of that. So I'll play the guitar parts, drum beat, get a little loop together, and
Yeah.
once I do the demo, then I know, okay, because I can work fast here. I purposely don't try to make it sound great on the demo,
Mhm.
because that
Mhm.
way I know I'm going to re-record it. If I try to make it sound good, then I might be too lazy to redo that vocal or whatever. So I don't even use my best microphones and things. I
Mhm.
just go straight into the drum machine, record the guitar parts or whatever. And once I
Mhm.
get the demos together, then when I go to my computer and turn on all my vintage, gear that I've collected over the years, which is probably worth more than my home. Uh, when I turn on all that vintage gear and the vintage microphones and things and get those tubes going, it's just about performing the track. It takes me, 15 minutes to play a guitar part. And So I play the guitar, play the bass, you know, I already got my drum pattern together. And so I can work a lot faster. I can do the actual recording in a day or two of a tune. And it's ready. By the time I finish recording, it's pretty much ready for mix.
Yeah. Yeah.
Versus,
So
hold on, hold
yeah.
on. Hold on.
Yeah.
Why it took from 2007 to 2023 to release Choking Kind is
Yeah.
because I didn't do that. You see what I'm saying? I went straight to the computer
Yeah.
and tried to record the, you know, the earliest ideas and stuff in 96K on you know, computers that really wasn't prepared to work with 96K. And it takes me 15 minutes to record the guitar and 3 or 6 years trying to get the guitar to sound right. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so it's like, don't even mess with the computer.
Yeah.
I'm talking like an old school person. But if you're doing music,
Yeah.
if you got an old synthesizer around, or a Moog synthesizer, an old Fender Rhodes,
Yeah.
an organ, any kind of instrument where you don't need a USB and an internet connection,
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
you're doing it right, because you shouldn't have to have an internet connection, and then you got to have this software talk to this software and do all this stuff and have all these subscriptions. You got to it's like it's cheap to buy like the subscription instrument that you can get that for $300, but a real keyboard might cost you $2,000. But it's better to get the $2,000 keyboard, because even if you don't have the internet connection, no computer, anything, you can go and get your ideas together and play. So I'm just saying that I have spent too much time trying to get the computer to sound like a tape machine, or sound, because you know, when you're producing blues, Pete, you got to fight with the damn computer. It just is not a warm, you know, it's not spongy like tape, and it's just difficult to get shit to sound right. But so I'm excited about my new method, because I don't mix and match. I go
that's
drum machine, and the last thing I'll do after I get everything straight and know exactly what I want to do, then I'll turn on the computer and actually record the song, and it speeds my process up.
I love all that. No, that's great, because one of the things I was thinking about asking was, you know, do you ever just grab a reel to reel and record something, you know, and you kind of do that with your iPhone, you know, it doesn't have to be a reel to reel, but you're just like, hey, let's just get this idea down. And I was just thinking through the whole process, like, what are the things, look, I love all kinds of music, you know, but there are times, not always, but there are times when I hear modern music and I'm like, just clear some of that shit out of the way, you know, and just like less stuff, not so many sounds, not so many unnatural sounds. And like, let's just hear that melody. Let's just hear those harmonies. Like, you have all these great harmonies, but there's so much stuff layered in. There are so many sounds. It doesn't sound real a lot of times to me. You know, when I hear a lot of modern music, there's just so much modifying of things. I think it's because we've gotten so comfortable in the computer that this is just old man Pete talking. But
no, what you're saying is that, you know, I don't want to cut you off, but I just want to underline that what you're saying is very important, and continue.
Yeah, and too many times. There's a lot of times when it works great, and when it doesn't work, I look and I go, just please grab the damn horn and play it. Grab the harmonica and just fucking play it. Grab some traps and just play them. Play the congas and just let them be the congas, you know, instead of doing all the other things, you know. And like, and then I'm going to be a hypocrite here. I'm like, grab the Moog instead of the piano, or whatever, right? But yeah, like, if you can, which you can, grab that 12 string, grab that dobro, grab that real thing, grab that bass, you know, sax, grab that tenor sax, and just blow notes through it, because there is something, I believe, that is more rich, more real. And it also gives you the chance to mess with time. And I think that, man, that stuff is missing from a lot of modern music, and it removes the temptation to instantly start packing shit into the sound. And it just gets crowded for me. That's just Pete talking.
No, that's beautiful, because I'll just add to that when by making demos on the drum machine, when I do drag those files into a Pro Tools session, And okay, now I'm getting ready to record the bass track. Instead of me just playing to a click like that, now I got to play the bass to that and imagine the background singers and the vocals and the other instruments. At least I can just mute the bass from the demo and play the bass along with all the other instruments that I recorded on the demo. So I can play with the kind of dynamics and feel like I'm playing with the band. And so I do that for that. My method is to do that with each track. So I get the real bass recorded, then I get rid of the demo bass, and then I go to the piano. I get rid of the demo piano and go ahead and play the. And so every time I'm playing, I'm not just playing to now. I'm playing the piano to the bass guitar only, because I'm a one-man band. So instead of trying to keep all that in my head, having pre-recording a demo really works for me because it gives me something to play along with as I'm tracking each individual instrument. And I would say this: you triggered my thought about the new album. One of the main problems I had with recording traditional blues in the digital domain, it's not friendly. Meaning that when we hear those great records that were made by Bill Putnam in Chicago, the musicians in Chicago, they weren't greater musicians than the musicians who were in Tennessee or Louisiana or Texas. But the Chess Records had the best sound engineer in the music business recording those classic Chess recordings. So when you hear Lil Walter on that harmonica and it sounds like a train coming from way down the valley somewhere, that's not a mistake. I mean, Bill Putnam was a genius of sound. He is, for people that don't know, he's also the person who built a lot of the equipment and helped design Capitol Studios out in Los Angeles. And when you hear Nat King Cole, singing those great Christmas tracks, his vocals and everything and echoes and stuff, all of that is kind of a Bill Putnam type of production. So Frank Sinatra as well, all those great Sinatra albums, Putnam his equipment is essential in that. And he has a company called Universal Audio, or his sons have a company to keep his heritage alive. And actually, the new album is recorded in the same process. They sampled like some of these recording rooms. And so the blues need air and it needs room to breathe. And it got to feel like you're playing in a room, with other musicians. Yeah. And so they have digitized a lot of Bill Putnam's preamps, compressors, and things like this in room sounds, the way that he would create echo chambers and things out of a spare bathroom or whatever, putting the mic in a spare bathroom and running sound there and create an echo. So they've done all these kinds of things virtually now, which means that I can actually record a traditional blues album straight into a laptop and recreate that sonic character that it needs. Like you mentioned, tape. Man, to have a tape machine like I used to do with recording, you can really get close. You maybe not 100%, but you can really get close these days if you know what you're doing. And so you can kind of capture the nuances. And I'll just add one little nugget here. I think that's part of the death of rock and roll, is because we as guitar players, we would crank the guitar up and pierce your ears right with the guitar. Like that's the loudest thing on a Van Halen track or Jimi Hendrix track is the guitar, or you just put it right in people's face. But on tape, in the tape world, it is forgiving. All that harshness from the guitar, the tape softens it and warms it up and give it this analog vintage sound and feel. And so it makes you want to turn the volume up. But the digital world, those ones and zeros have no warmth, no character, it's just sterile. And when you crank an amp up, the same mic that Jimi Hendrix used, the same amp he used, it sounds horrible, and it makes people run and turn the volume down because it's not there's nothing like the analog world that will soften all those edges. So you get this sterile, like you're in some kind of laboratory of some sterile where there's no feeling of vibe or humanness to ones and zeros.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
but the technology has come to a place now where at least someone like myself can go back and virtually recreate the chess studios and those echo chambers and the tape sound and all that stuff. You can kind of do that now, which you couldn't do it. I would say you couldn't even do it 5 years ago.
There are some amazing tools, and these tools you're talking about, they're incredible. And there's another aspect too. And again, this is Pete, the barely a musician, talking to you. So I'm going to get out of your way here in a second. But I can kind of write a song.
Go ahead and say what you're saying. I want to grab something real quick. Keep talking.
Yeah, okay. So what I want to say is I've had J.R. Robinson on the show. John, yeah, you've met John on the show before here too. But J.R. Has done this. He talked about this. Wes maybe has talked about this. But one of the jobs of a live band is, and one of the jobs of the blues is to get people laid. I mean, to get people feeling sexy. And what JR said is like, when I'm playing the drums, yes, I'm in time. But if I see, and I'm just going to throw out her name, if I see Dorothy and her hips are swaying in the right way, I'm going to slightly change the time of the music. And I know you understand this. Like, you're looking at the crowd, and as much as you're driving the music, they're driving your music, and you're trying to get that room to be one big thing, and it's sexy and it's rock and roll and people are dancing. And John Leon Guerrero, who works the show with me, when he's playing out live, he wants people on the dance floor. Like, the guys in this band are like, let's play this really cool song. He's like, no, nobody dances to that song. We want to get ladies out there. We want to get people drinking. That's our job. And you're looking for those songs. Yeah. What is that?
Can you see that?
You lift it up a little bit, like by your nose. Yeah. I can't quite read it. It says Universal, Randy, Windy City. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. The picture. Yes. Yeah. I can see that. Yeah.
Show you that's Bill Putnam.
Bill Putnam. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. The name of the book is Temples of Sound.
Yeah. Yeah.
And everything like Muscle Shows. It highlights Muscle Shows. The chess studios. This guy. That's Bill Putnam right there. And Nat King Cole. Can you see that picture?
Yeah, I can see that picture. Yeah.
Yeah, that's him and Nat King Cole. And so, but he was the guy in the studio recording all that great blues stuff, with Howlin', people like Howlin' Wolf.
Yeah, Howlin' Wolf, yeah.
Stuff.
Chess, yeah.
Yeah, all that Muddy Water stuff was recorded by Bill Putnam. And I'm showing you that because, like I said, at least from about 2010 to 2000, maybe 19, it was really frustrating because even though I wanted to do some things where the guitar is right in your face, like this new album, the guitar is right there in your face, but I couldn't put it in your face because it would people don't want to hear loud guitars in their ears with their little earbuds that don't translate well. And not just me, there are no, get rock music, you just don't hear it anymore. Listen, I am not crying for these hair bands from the 80s. I am not crying for these guys, but these guys are out of work because the guitar just didn't make the translation into the digital domain. It just don't really work well. It was an analog thing that was really meant. It really works in analog. I'll give you another example of some things don't translate. The trumpet was like in my book. I just want people to know that this is still available on Amazon. Can you see that?
Yes, we can, because I got my copy out too. The blues. I'll put the link up right now in the comments.
Great, yeah. So it's still available on Amazon and at your local bookstore. This is physical. You can get that at your local bookstore. And if they sold out, you can order. It has been a bestseller. The trumpet was the great instrument of the blues because it was the loudest instrument. It was the when you soloed on that, it was like the instrument from Louis Armstrong's time to like the 50s or so. The trumpet was the thing. The saxophone tried to compete a little bit, but the trumpet really was that great blues instrument for soloing. But it couldn't get louder, as loud as the guitar. And in the 60s, Miles Davis didn't want to give up, you know, his platform to the guitar players. So he tried to play the trumpet through the wah-wah pedal. He tried to play it through amplifiers, through Marshall amps. I mean, he tried to compete with guitar players to say, no, y'all not going to take over the blues. I'm going to still be the blues, you know, soloist. Yeah. But the trumpet just don't translate to Marshall amplifiers and loud amplified, you know, electric music. It just didn't translate. Yeah. And so it got left behind. And so the guitar is threatened to, the guitar is being threatened, the electric guitar, that is kind of being left behind in this digital world. It just don't translate well. And having said all of that, even though I know that, and I know how hard it is to do this, that's why it's taken so long for some songs to come together. But also, the technology now kind of gives me hope that the guitar can make a comeback, because I'm using all kind of tape imaging and things like that to kind of really create that analog sound on the new album. So I think sonically, it got pretty close. And I think I'm going to get even better with the next album.
Well, this album here, The Big Gray Sky, the link is down below. Anywhere where digital music is sold, you can get it. It's great. I love it. You guys should get it. Mm-hmm. And of course, stream it, but also buy it, because why not? And support great acts like Chris Thomas King when they're live. He'll be coming live on tour. You can track his movements on his website. That's also now down below. And for sure, you don't want to miss out. If you want to understand the blues, the real history of blues, that's the book right down there. All these things are in the remarks, so you can see those things and understand the history of this stuff. You talked about Lonnie Johnson earlier. I think I might have mentioned Jelly Roll. No, I thought about Jelly Roll Morton earlier, because you did that suite, that whole side of the album dedicated to him, and you're going kind of back to that original roots. That music is, it takes some getting used to, because it's so different than modern music, the pace of it and the way they play the piano and everything. Do you do anything to deal with that, to kind of make it a little more familiar, or do you just kind of use what's there and just bring it into a modern recording method?
Well, great question. That's one of the things when you talk about the early New Orleans music as being the foundation of the blues and predating what came later in the Mississippi Delta. Right. For those who don't know, the Mississippi Delta, the first recordings from the Mississippi Delta didn't happen until around 1928. You know, Charlie Patton recorded in 1929. He's supposed to be the founder of the Delta blues, so to speak. Robert Johnson, whom everybody has heard of, he didn't start recording until around 1935. The blues had already been performed in New Orleans from the early 1890s, predating the music business. And then when it finally got on record, the recordings were so primitive, you could not, the early recording, you could not have anything under, say, 500 hertz, meaning that you could not, the bass player, he might come to the recording session and he might be a part of the band, but they wouldn't let him play on the record, because the needle would just jump, because they recorded straight to disc and it couldn't handle any low frequencies. And so a lot of times drums were not even involved. And you get a lot of people singing soprano, a lot of soprano high-pitched singing was being done back then. And so for a lot of reasons, the recording were very primitive. But I bet if you were in the room when those bands was performing, you heard the bass, you heard the full sonic of it. Mm-hmm. But what's left when we try to go back and listen to Jelly Roll Morton, or listen to, you know, King Oliver, or some of the early, you know, Louisiana blues, it sounds too tinty and then the time signature, you know, is a little different. They played in 2/4 time as opposed to 4/4 time. And so it just sounds very foreign. And so you're asking me how I'm going to deal with that. And the chord structures are amazing that they did back then, the musicianship and stuff. So you got to struggle. You got to be a good musician just to play the damn stuff, you know. And I think that
Yeah.
I think what happened is the can I grab my guitar real quick?
Yeah, grab your guitar, man. Yeah. Yes, you can grab your guitar. Come on. Chris just asked if he could grab his guitar.
Can you see this?
If you lift it up a little bit, well, we can hear it for
You
sure.
can hear it. You can hear it. Okay.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
So well, this is the guitar. So for instance, we do a blues like this. People started doing it. You know, 1-4, then they go to the 5. You know, and that's how they think the blues goes. However, these guys would do something like they would keep the cards moving. Same thing, just keeping the card moving, like. I'll do that one more time. He'll start. Might go to a mountain and back to the 1. So it's like all these different chord changes, whereas people heard that on records and say, man, I'm not going to try to, I can't do all of that, so I'm just going to play. And all those little things in between, they just got rid of.
Mm-hmm.
And so what we're used to hearing is that what we're used to hearing as the music got kind of simplified and turned into like this country rural thing, and dilettante, you know, amateur people on a farm or something might get recorded by folklorists. Well, they're going to simplify it as much as they can. And so all those little nuances and chord changes and things that really make a vocalist stand out, a lot of that stuff, you know, just got thrown to the wayside. And so when we hear this music, we're thinking, oh, this music is very primitive, and this is the beginning of the blues, because this amateur guy on some farm in Mississippi, he could hardly play the guitar. And then, like, it started with him, and then it got more sophisticated as it went on. And that's just not the story. The New Orleans music was already sophisticated when it got first recorded in 1920, 21, 22, 23. And most musicians couldn't duplicate that kind of thing, or they weren't as used to that style of music. And so they found ways to simplify it and make it more simple. One other example, real quick, Miles Davis, you know, used to do bebop. You know, he came out with all the beboppers, you know, Charlie Parker and them, playing all those notes and all those changes over chords. And then he decided he was going to smooth his music out, and he'll play these long, you know, notes with just this little, you know, with this, you know, ballads and things like that. And he left the bebop stuff behind and had his most success with an album like, you know, what's the great album he made in '59? Kind of Blue.
Oh yeah, Kind of Blue, right?
Yeah, those kind of, you know, where he got away from bebop and did that, kind of made the music more simple. And sometimes when you simplify the music, you get a bigger audience as well. So so I forget what your question was, but I think it was how I'm going to deal with it. I think the public needs to hear that early music recorded with the full bass and the full sound, and have it come on their stereo system or in their car sounding as good as Taylor Swift, you know, as her production might be, or whomever it might be, you know. And I think, but also not try to be so traditional. But I'm doing it with drum machines and stuff too. So it's going to be traditional, but traditional in a modern way. I'm not going totally old school.
Right. Well, yeah, and my question ultimately was like that music is so foreign to us now, but you talked about like a lot of it couldn't even be put in there because it was tinty and you were like, you know, and Jelly Roll's just going 1,000 miles an hour on purpose sometimes to show what could be done. And then there's just no more room on that little wax, you know, tube for anything else because
even on the reason hip hop didn't have the big sub bass is because you couldn't do that on CDs. So people car stereos and things, you know, couldn't even do sub bass until maybe 25 years ago. So hip hop couldn't have had the heavy bass and the big boom because technology just wasn't able to handle it, you know. So we've gotten to a point where we can get the full spectrum from the lowest notes to the highest notes now. And that's kind of where we are. And so in reproducing music, you know, this earlier music, I'm gonna use the full sonic space that I have available to me. I'm not gonna try to recreate that old sound, so to speak.
Yeah. Everybody's got to go check out Chris Thomas King and go listen to everything. I mean, there's stuff on YouTube, there's stuff everywhere. So first off, there's where you go when you get Big Gray Sky. That's where you track all his stuff. That's where you buy the book. Man, you guys got to go out and support this. And when he goes live, you got to go see him live. He's great. Everything he does is great. There's the book right there. What else do you want to say in closing? I don't want to take any more of your time, man. I dig everything you do. I'm always excited to support everything you're doing. Can't wait to see you again.
Well, Pete, thanks for giving me a platform to start off the new year with you and share, you know, some information with everyone. And yeah, the new album, Big Gray Sky, we did do a music video. We're going to try to release a couple more videos from that album. And it's available wherever, like you say, you know, wherever people stream their music, it can be purchased at a download at iTunes if you wish to do that. And hopefully I'll be on tour with my new band sometime beginning in the summer. But like I said, you know, we're talking to some booking agents right now to see you know, who we're going to work with. So yeah, I hope to see people on the road, you know, sometime real soon.
Yeah. All right, let me run the credits here. I'll be right back to you and say goodbye. Hold on.
Hey, thanks for watching the show. I really appreciate it. Right here, you can subscribe. Please do that. It makes the show grow. Hit that notification bell so you know which incredible guest is coming up next. Down below is the PayPal link. You can put a small subscription in. That is an enormous help. All that money goes right back into the show. And then right up over here are the next episodes you should listen to, curated by